It happened again. After a bizarre and vicious campaign fueled by a desperate need not to go to jail, Donald Trump has won the 2024 election. Almost like you rehearsed that.
Stephen Colbert's quip, "It happened again." After a bizarre and vicious campaign fueled by a desperate need not to go to jail, Donald Trump has won the 2024 election. The deep, "It's almost like you rehearsed that," layers biting satire over a sobering political reality. To unpack this, one must trace Trump's trajectory from 2016 to 2024, where his political survival became intertwined with legal jeopardy. Historically, Trump's rise was buoyed by populist anti-establishment fervor, media savvy, and a base disillusioned by globalization and cultural shifts. By 2024, however, his campaign's desperate need not to go to jail reflects a stark pivot. Mounting federal and state investigations into election interference January 6th, mishandling classified documents and financial fraud transformed his bid for office into a shield against prosecution. This legal brinkmanship, unprecedented in modern U.S. politics, echoes authoritarian playbooks where power is weaponized to evade accountability. The bizarre and vicious nature of the 2024 campaign underscores Trump's escalation of rhetoric and tactics. Building on his 2020 Stop the Steal playbook, he amplified conspiracy theories, e.g., the deep state rigged elections, and targeted institutions like the judiciary and media, framing himself as a martyr persecuted by political enemies. This narrative, rehearsed and refined over years, resonated with a base galvanized by cultural grievances, anti-immigration, anti-woke policies, and economic anxieties exacerbated by inflation. Meanwhile, his opponent struggles to counter this messaging, compounded by Democratic infighting and a fragmented media landscape, allowed Trump to dominate headlines even as his legal woes mounted. Colbert's jab at the rehearsed deep critique mocks Trump's reliance on recycled scapegoats. The deep state trope, a staple of his rhetoric since 2016, evolved into a catch-all defense against scrutiny, effectively insulating his base from facts. This cyclical absurdity, where scandals are dismissed as partisan attacks, reveals systemic rot. A polarized electorate, a Republican Party prioritizing power over principle, and a legal system ill-equipped to check a president who views norms as obstacles. Trump's 2024 victory also reflects voter fatigue. Some Americans, disillusioned by partisan gridlock, opted for perceived strength over stability, while others, detached from political news cycles, remained unaware of alternatives, as hinted by Google searches for "Did Joe Biden drop out?" on Election Day. Ultimately, Colbert's commentary laments a democracy in crisis, where legal and electoral systems failed to deter a figure openly hostile to their constraints. The line, "It's almost like you rehearsed that," underscores the tragedy of predictability. Despite the Capitol riot, impeachments, and indictments, Trump's playbook prevailed, exposing how polarization, media fragmentation, and short-term political calculus can normalize once unthinkable scenarios. His return to power signals not just a personal comeback, but a stress test for democratic resilience, one that leaves institutions weaker and the nation's divides deeper, with Colbert's satire serving as both a punchline and a warning. Colbert's dissection of the systemic rot and legal brinkmanship that facilitated Trump's 2024 resurgence lays bare the structural vulnerabilities of a democracy strained by polarization and institutional decay. Yet this resurgence cannot be reduced solely to systemic failure. It also reflects a deliberate, if grim, choice by an electorate fully aware of Trump's authoritarian impulses. Where his initial critique frames Trump's victory as a tragedy of predictable dysfunction, legal woes weaponized into a campaign shield, the analysis sharpens to probe how voters, despite witnessing the chaos of his first term, consciously embraced his demagoguery as a vehicle for cultural retribution and partisan identity. The shift from dismissing his rise as a grotesque fluke to confronting its intentional reaffirmation exposes not just institutional fragility, but societal complicity, a willingness to trade democratic norms for the visceral thrills of grievance politics. This progression moves beyond diagnosing how Trump returned to power, instead interrogating why a nation, schooled in the perils of his rule, opted to plunge deeper into the abyss, a question binding systemic collapse to collective accountability.
Last time Trump won, it felt like a grotesque fluke. This time, America knew exactly what they were getting, and they went hard for him anyway. It's like that famous quote, "Those who do not learn from history are me."
Stephen Colbert's quote, "Last time Trump won, it felt like a grotesque fluke." This time, America knew exactly what they were getting, and they went hard for him anyway. It's like that famous quote, "Those who do not learn from history are me," serves as a sardonic indictment of America's political trajectory, blending dark humor with a sobering critique of democratic backsliding. The 2016 election, framed as a grotesque fluke, reflected a perfect storm of factors. Populist backlash against globalization, distrust in institutions, and Clinton-era complacency, all amplified by Trump's media-savvy disruption of political norms. His victory was dismissed by many as a temporary aberration, a protest vote against the status quo rather than an endorsement of Trumpism itself. By 2024, however, his re-election signals a seismic shift. Voters, now fully aware of his presidency's chaos, 2 impeachments, the Capitol riot, 91 criminal charges, and relentless attacks on democratic institutions, consciously chose to reaffirm his leadership. Colbert's phrase, "went hard for him anyway," underscores an electorate steeped in polarization, where partisan identity and cultural grievances, anti-immigration rhetoric, anti-wokeness, economic nostalgia, eclipsed concerns about authoritarianism or accountability. The mangled aphorism, "Those who do not learn from history are me," layers self-referential irony, mocking both collective amnesia and the absurdity of a nation repeating its mistakes while feigning awareness. Here, Colbert implicates himself and the media, a nod to their role in normalizing Trump's transgressions through relentless coverage, while skewering Trump's own historical illiteracy, as he often weaponizes victimhood and revisionism to evade consequences. This repetition of history reflects systemic failures. A Republican Party that abandoned principle to consolidate power, a Democratic opposition hobbled by infighting and ineffective messaging, and a media ecosystem that prioritizes conflict over context. Voter disillusionment also played a role. Some Americans, weary of inflation or cultural shifts, embraced Trump's faux populist promises, while others, disengaged from factual discourse, succumbed to misinformation evident in Google searches like, "Did Joe Biden drop out?" Trump's legal battles, far from disqualifying him, galvanized his base, framing prosecutions as partisan, witch hunts, and reinforcing his martyr narrative. Colbert's critique thus transcends partisan politics, lamenting a democracy where institutions failed to curb demagoguery, and where short-term grievances, real or imagined, trumped long-term consequences. The line, "Those who do not learn from history are me," becomes a tragic punchline. A nation aware of Trump's destabilizing impact, yet willingly plunging back into chaos, proving that the real, grotesque fluke was ever believing such an outcome couldn't happen again. Colbert's incisive critique of America's deliberate embrace of Trumpism, a choice made despite full awareness of its destabilizing consequences, finds a visceral parallel in his personal clash with Trump himself, where the electorate's reaffirmation of Trump exposed a society prioritizing grievance over governance. Colbert's satirical feud with the former president crystallizes the absurdity of that dynamic. Trump's attacks on Colbert, branding him no talent and filthy, epitomize his broader strategy of vilifying critics to deflect scrutiny and energize his base. Yet, as Colbert's fabricated guest appearance and mockery of Trump's obsession with ratings reveal, this hostility only amplified satire's power to expose the fragility of authoritarian posturing. The shift from analyzing systemic democratic decay to dissecting this media skirmish underscores a critical tension. Just as polarization normalized Trump's norm-shattering behavior, satire emerged as both a reflection of democratic erosion and a defiant tool to mock its absurdity. In this dance between demagoguery and dissent, Collbert's retorts, ridiculing Trump's thin skin and hollow victories, became more than comedy. They served as a microcosm of democracy's struggle to reconcile accountability with the spectacle of power.
The President of the United States has personally come after me and my show. And there's only one thing to say.
Stephen Colbert's declaration that the President of the United States has personally come after me and my show is a masterclass in satirical critique, dissecting the surreal interplay between political power and media during Donald Trump's presidency. This statement arose after Trump publicly lambasted Colbert as a no-talent comedian peddling filthy content, a charge Colbert deftly parodied by inventing a fictional guest appearance, quipping, "The night you appeared on this show, it was very highly rated." While Trump never actually appeared on The Late Show, Colbert's fabricated anecdote serves as a multifaceted jab. It mocks Trump's obsession with television ratings and self-aggrandizement, e.g., boasting about record viewership, while exposing the absurdity of a president fixating on a comedian's jokes. The fictional cameo satirizes Trump's habit of rewriting reality, such as falsely claiming historic inauguration crowds, to gaslight the public, framing his presidency itself as a farcical episode unworthy of serious engagement. Trump's attacks on Colbert mirrored his broader strategy of weaponizing personal vendettas to distract from political crises, impeachments, legal woes, and galvanize his base, framing critics like Colbert as embodiments of a corrupt elite. Yet Colbert subverted these attacks, turning Trump's vitriol into comedic fuel. By sarcastically thanking Trump for building up my base, he highlighted the paradox that Trump's outrage only amplified the show's cultural relevance, mirroring Trump's own reliance on controversy for attention. Colbert's meta-humor, "don't make me trend on Twitter again," laments the symbiotic toxicity between Trump and media, where outrage drives engagement, eroding substantive discourse. The line "you won the ratings college" layers satire, mocking both Trump's electoral college victory, despite losing the popular vote, and his hollow obsession with winning metrics, reducing governance to a reality TV competition. By likening Trump's feud with him to Richard Nixon going after Alfred E. Newman, Colbert underscores the erosion of presidential dignity, contrasting Trump's thin-skinned retaliations with historical norms of stoicism. This feud exemplifies how Trump's presidency blurred governance and entertainment, transforming late-night comedy into a battleground for democratic accountability. Colbert's defiance, closing with "what me worry." Frames satire as both a mirror to power and a shield against authoritarianism, asserting that humor remains a vital check on leaders who conflate criticism with disloyalty. Ultimately, the quote encapsulates the era's democratic tensions. A president who viewed mockery as existential threat, a media landscape polarized into partisan echo chambers, and a public grappling with the normalization of norm-shattering behavior. Colbert's retort, steeped in irony, transcends mere comedy. It becomes a lament for institutions strained by demagoguery and a celebration of satire's enduring role in challenging power, even as it underscores democracy's fragile dance between resilience and backsliding. Colbert's dissection of Trump's media skirmishes, where personal vendettas doubled as political spectacle, finds a grim counterpart in the tangible fallout of his governance. While satirizing Trump's obsession with ratings and thin-skinned retaliations exposed the absurdity of his leadership, Colbert's critique sharpens further when confronting the real-world consequences of such theatrics. an economy destabilized by capricious policies and institutions hollowed out by ideological crusades. The same president who framed critics as corrupt elites presided over self-inflicted economic crises, swapping the unavoidable catastrophe of a pandemic for a recession born of trade wars and culture war distractions. Just as Trump's attacks on media figures like Collbert revealed his fragility, his dismissal of market volatility and purging of woke terminology laid bare a governance philosophy prioritizing performative wins over public welfare. In this shift from mocking the theater of power to indicting its substance, Collbert's satire bridges the gap between political farce and systemic collapse, illustrating how the erosion of democratic norms in one arena fuels dysfunction in another, where reality TV governance begets very real economic chaos.
Trump's policies aren't just hurting the markets. According to the Atlanta Fed, so far, growth in the current quarter was a stunning negative 2.8%, signaling that the GDP is shrinking at the fastest pace since the pandemic lockdown. In the first Trump term, it took a disease to destroy the economy.
Stephen Colbert's critique serves as a biting indictment of the economic turbulence and policy recklessness characterizing Donald Trump's governance. Collbert anchors his satire in verifiable data, the Atlanta Fed's report of a minus 2.8% GDP contraction, to underscore the self-inflicted nature of the crisis, contrasting it with the pandemic-driven collapse during Trump's first term. The line asterisk this time, he is the disease asterisk, crystallizes the critique. Whereas COVID-19 was an external shock, the current downturn stems directly from Trump's erratic policies, including his twitchy tariff hand and volatile trade wars, which Collbert mocks as akin to a shaman pouring ayahuasca down your throat to unleash an animal spirit of market chaos. These policies, marked by abrupt tariffs and protectionist measures, have destabilized Wall Street, exhausted investors, and created a climate of uncertainty where the markets climb one day and plummet the next. Colbert's reference to Wall Street's exhaustion, asterisk, you know how hard it is to exhaust Wall Street. They wake up every morning to a hot cup of cocaine, asterisk, hyperbolizes the unprecedented strain of Trump's capriciousness, framing him as a disruptor who prioritizes ideological posturing over economic stability. The comparison to the pandemic-era recession is particularly damning. During Trump's first term, the economy cratered due to a global health crisis, an unavoidable catastrophe. Now, Collbert argues, the contraction is a choice, a consequence of Trump's fixation on short-term, politically motivated decisions, e.g., dismantling DEI initiatives, purging woke language like women and diversity from federal documents, rather than sustainable fiscal strategy. The satirical jab at Trump's executive order censoring terms like barriers and sex, asterisk, a list clearly made by men who have experienced barriers having sex with women, asterisk, ties his culture war obsessions to broader governance failures, suggesting that his administration prioritizes symbolic victories, erasing Enola Gay photos to avoid the word gay, over addressing economic realities. Colbert's mockery of Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, asterisk less DEI, more DUI, asterisk, further illustrates how Trump's hires and policies prioritize loyalty over competence, exacerbating institutional dysfunction. Collbert also critiques Trump's myopic perspective, quoting him dismissing stock market volatility with asterisk, you can't really watch the stock market. China has a 100-year perspective, asterisk, a line Collbert skewers by comparing it to justifying lateness to a wedding with geological timescales. Asterisk, on a geological scale, 2 hours is punctual, asterisk. This highlights Trump's detachment from the immediate consequences of his policies, framing his leadership as philosophically incoherent and practically disastrous. The bit about Huxon Financial, a fictional sponsor promising stability amid chaos, satirizes the absurdity of seeking rational investment strategies in an economy upended by Trump's whims. while the deletion of diverse workforce from FAA job postings underscores how his anti-DEI crusade undermines both social progress and institutional efficacy. Ultimately, Collbert's critique transcends partisan mockery. By juxtaposing hard data, the Atlanta Fed's GDP figures with absurdist humor, he exposes the human cost of Trump's governance. An economy lurching between crises, a workforce stripped of representation, and a global reputation diminished by petty feuds, e.g. Trump's jealousy over King Charles hosting Zelensky. The line asterisk in the first Trump term, "It took a disease to destroy the economy." This time, "he is the disease" asterisk distills the argument into a visceral metaphor, positioning Trump not just as an ineffective leader, but as an active agent of decline. Collbert's satire thus becomes a rallying cry for accountability, using laughter to underscore the urgency of resisting policies that prioritize chaos, division, and self-aggrandizement over the public good. Stephen Colbert's razor-sharp satire, a blend of absurdist humor, unflinching critique, and democratic defiance, leaves us grappling with urgent questions. What lingers after dissecting Trump's chaos? Was it the spectacle of a president weaponizing ratings over reality, gaslighting a nation with rehearsed lies? The grim irony of an economy cratering not from a pandemic, but from self-inflicted trade wars and culture war tantrums? Or Colbert's own defiance, turning Trump's vitriol into a rallying cry for accountability, proving satire itself a lifeline in democracy's darkest hour? We want to hear from you. Did Colbert's mockery of Trump's twitchy tariff hand and animal spirit economics resonate as a warning? Or did his fictional takedowns, like Trump's phantom guest appearance, highlight the absurdity of power's fragility? Have you seen leaders in your lifetime morph from clowns to autocrats, their hollow victories masking systemic rot? Share your thoughts below. We're eager to unpack this era of farce and fury with you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell to join our deep dives into the stories shaping democracy's tightrope walk. Your engagement fuels this mission to challenge power, amplify truth, and celebrate voices like Colbert's, who wield laughter as both sword and shield. Thank you for watching. Stay vigilant, stay laughing, and we'll see you in the next chapter of the fight.